What if Beethoven composed EDM? I wanted to answer this question, so I created a rendition of Moonlight Sonata in the style of EDM. Here's how it went. Why I picked Moonlight Sonata for this experiment. Moonlight Sonata is a piano piece known for its dark theme and intricate beauty. Plus, I've played it before on piano many years ago. Since I already had some history and familiarity with the piece, I thought that this would be great to test out the Beethoven EDM theory. It's full of arpeggios and a bunch of interesting chords, which is great for the electronic dance genre. But I did have some trouble piecing the most well-known parts together throughout the song. The challenges of connecting Moonlight Sonata to the modern EDM genre. Taking a classical piece from hundreds of years ago and somehow combining it with the popular digital genre of today was a challenge, although a welcome one. Here are a few issues I came across. Picking the best parts. For the sake of time and this video, I chose not to make a full-length track. So, I had to decide which parts of Moonlight Sonata I wanted to include. The final results included the beginning of the song, which is the most well-known and most iconic, and then there's the climax portion, which I believe gives off the greatest emotion. Determining tempo and rhythm. Next, I had to figure out the best way to deal with the original rhythms and tempos of the song. Since this had to be EDM-ified, I initially thought that a faster tempo would be better. However, after testing out a tempo-increasing automation track, I decided that it would be better to keep it at around a slow and steady 66 beats per minute. Plus, the right-hand triplets kind of sound fast anyway at that speed, so it worked out well. Speaking of right-hand triplets, my next challenge was figuring out how to make them fit into one beat. If you're kind of new to music, triplets are basically 3 notes that have to fit into one regular beat evenly. I was not willing to go through the process of switching the snapping settings in FL Studio, so I just went with a more tropical-like rhythm. I think it fits for the goals that we're going for here. Arrangement. This was the hardest aspect of this challenge. After picking the parts that I wanted to include in the song, I had to figure out how exactly to transition between them without it sounding like I cut and paste, which, hey, between you and me, I kind of did. To solve this, I added lots of effects like risers and crashes. I also added some vocal elements to make it a little more obvious that this in fact was not Beethoven's original version. I think it turned out well though. Now let's move on to the easy parts of this. The composition. Mr. Ludwig Beethoven did that for me back in 1801. Thank you, sir. But I had to find sheet music and record that sheet music into my DAW. It was very tedious, but it wasn't crazy difficult. It probably would have been easier if my sight reading skills were a little better. Hey, I'm kind of working on it, unofficially. Choosing sounds and instruments. Choosing sounds was easier than I was expecting. I was kind of disappointed, to be honest. I wanted more of a creative challenge, which I don't think I got with this project. I decided to include some acoustic type sounds like strings and brass, but also incorporate some electronic sounds. I think this helps keep some of the authentic feel of the original piece. I found presets for these instruments in one of my favorite plugins called Flex. As for the electronic parts, I mainly used Vital, Flex, and Citrus for the sub bass and the synths. In my previous song, Summer Shadows, I made a wobble bass and a lead from scratch. I decided to use those too. I also used the Native Instruments Hi-Fi and Analog Dreams plugin for some of the lead and pad parts. Spotlight Learning Experience, my upgraded FL Studio workflow. Ever since I started working with FL Studio, I've had a problem figuring out the best workflow where I didn't have to be interrupted by always creating a new pattern when adding a new part to a track. My problems with this is that I just got overwhelmed with all the pieces randomly floating around on the playlist. It was so disorganized. In fact, I considered switching to PreSonus Studio One just because of this. But luckily, I figured out a new process that was a game changer for this project. Here are the basics. I compose and record all the primary instruments for the entire song in only one pattern, but I don't treat it like a pattern. I always record in song mode. And then finally, I right-click on the pattern where all my instruments are on, then split them into different channel tracks. This allows me to go through all the track lines and auto-name them so that the track line name matches the contents and the colors. Doesn't this look oh so organized? I love it. I have made tracks for you guys, totally free and also royalty free for you guys to use in any of your content. So go ahead and check out the link below to download yours now. Final touches and mixing. Remember when I mentioned that I had a challenge with transitioning between the different parts of Moonlight Sonata earlier? Well, at the end, I loaded it up like sour cream on a potato with percussion and effects to help not only with the transitions, but to also provide an interesting atmosphere in the background. As for mixing, as of my last project, I have officially realized its importance to society. Here's the final result after my finished mixing process. This is Moonlight Sonata, EDM-ified.